to keep my hands busy and create beautiful stuff for my friends and family in the meantime. I don't know if there's any questions. I'm not taking requests at this point because I first want to try out the cross stitching. But once I've done a bit more of that, then maybe, who knows? So if there's any questions, let me know in the chat. And otherwise, we move on to the next session, which I'm so excited about because I absolutely love Legos. I played with it so much, and I now have a kiddo who is in the age of, like the big building blocks.
Oh, the Duplo.
Yeah, they're boring, and now we're moving to the small blocks to
you can start to do the really
Lego
cool stuff,
and it is so much fun. And totally, I totally relate to the title of your session as well, Lego in lockdown, because I definitely bought a couple of sets just to get through, the days as we've done homeschooling, and then you're just like, what do I do next? Like, I need to keep occupied. So we worked through a lot of dinosaur Lego sets.
They're really cool too.
They're super cute. So 100% look forward to your session, Stacy. And I'm gonna professionally introduce you because that's I've been told that's the good thing to do. So Stacy, right? Stacy Cashmore. Her pronouns, is a tech explorer at Omniplan and a Microsoft MVP. If you're not familiar with Microsoft MVP, it's Microsoft's championship program, and your specialty, I believe, is developer technologies.
Yep, that's right.
So Stacy has been developing software since the mid-1990s and has been speaking about improving the way we develop software at conferences and meetup since 2018. I've seen a couple of your talks, and they've been always been great. Not about Legos yet, so that's why I'm very excited. Outside of work, well, I think we can safely assume you like Legos, but also
there's an amount of Lego outside of work, yeah.
But also you enjoy spending time with your classic car, playing the piano badly. Can also totally relate to that. Tried picking up the piano, not great yet, and spending time with family. So without further ado, I would love for you to take the floor.
Right, thank you very much. Good evening, everybody, and thank you for joining us here. Right, let's see if my Stream Deck works. This is the first time trying it out for real, so here we go. Yes, it worked! Woohoo! So, first technical hurdle overcome. Lego. Those little blocks of plastic that hurt like anything when you stand on them, but also little blocks of plastic that, with some imagination, if they're the small blocks, you can turn into anything. And as a child, I loved playing with Lego. I was actually really lucky. A friend of my parents had older children, and they'd grown out of Lego, and they had a huge collection, and it had to go somewhere. And thankfully, it came to me. I had an entire city. I had a police station, a fire station with rolling doors, which as a kid was just wow. I had the petrol station from the 80s with the canopy over the road, which was just something completely spectacular to 8-9-year-old me. And I had all sorts of buildings around this as well. And I loved spending hours building, playing, pulling it apart, putting it back together again. These three models that you see here, they made the center of my Lego town. And it's a really good job that there was the police station and the fire station, because safety record of that petrol station wasn't good. It blew up a lot. But as I got older, the blocky cars, and if you built one, you've built all of them, and the simple blocky buildings, they started to get, well, a bit old. I was a teenager. There were other things vying for my attention. And the Lego started to get ignored for days, weeks, months. And as unused toys often are, it was sold. It was time for somebody else to get the joy out of that Lego that I had. Until about 10 years ago, when I was triggered again. As mentioned in my intro, as well as my love of Lego, I have a love of cars and classic cars. And growing up, a friend of my brother's had a classic VW camper van. And I thought that was the coolest way to get around at the time. So around, I think about 7, 8 years ago or so, I saw this set in a shop window. The red and white VW camper van, split screen. I thought that was pretty cool. And the finished model looks great too. So I treated myself. And I spent a weekend putting it together, and it was brilliant. Compared to the Lego that we've just seen from the 80s, this had such complex building techniques inside of it. The level of detail in the model skyrocketed. That engine in the back looks like the engine in a VW camper. It even had the working roof, and it has a sofa bed that transforms so our little minifigures can go to sleep at night. I really enjoyed it, but I got to admit, at this point, I didn't realize that this was the start of a wallet-breaking, house-filling, time-consuming hobby. And then we get to Lego, the lockdown, and I really went into overdrive there. After all, there's nothing else to do, so you might as well do something that's fun. So I want to take you this evening on a very quick whirlwind tour of my joy, frustration, the family fun, and the family argument, my passion for Lego. Hi, I'm Stacy Cashmore. I'm past 40, and I am still totally hooked on these tiny little plastic blocks. I could happily spend all day building Lego. I am an AFOL, that is, an adult fan of Lego. Which got me thinking for this talk, what should I talk about? And I'm going to take you on a tour of my models. But I thought, as it's International Women's Day, and seeing as looking at Legos all well and good, but building Lego, that's where the fun's at. Let's see if I can try and convey what it feels like to build Lego. And so I have here the Women of NASA Lego set. Now, I'm going to be honest, my idea was to do this live on camera, open the box and be all woo about it. But I tried that yesterday with a different model. Totally does not work. So I have everything laid out because I'm a sorter. I can't pick up from random pieces of Lego. And whilst I take you on my journey, I am going to try and build this Lego set as we go along. Now, this is going to go one of 4 ways. It's going to be absolutely awesome. It's going to be a complete comedy of errors, and I hope you're entertained by the slapstick. I give up on the building and just concentrate on the presentation. Or I give up on the presentation and just concentrate on the building. We're going to see what happens. Maybe you'll even see me ping Lego across the room. That did happen yesterday. And I want to start off just talking about this set a little bit. It's a really tiny set. It's only 231 pieces, so hopefully I can get an amount built in the time that I've got available. And it's not actually one model, as you can see on the box. It's 3, and it's celebrating 4 people inside of NASA. And it's starting with Margaret Hamilton. And I want that view again. Yes. We're going to start with Margaret Hamilton, and she was the director of the software engineering division at the MIT Instrumentation Laboratory. And she was pretty much responsible with her team for the onboard software that got us to the moon with the Apollo program. And this model is a representation of the famous photo of her standing in front of that pile of printouts of all of the code that got us to the moon. And here she is. Next up, we have May C. Jameson. Now, May was the first Black woman in space in 1992. She's an engineer, physician, as well as a former astronaut. And I've just realized I'm totally out of camera for the building, so let's move. And she was a mission specialist on the Space Shuttle Endeavour. Moving on, and we have Sally Ride. And if I can get this helmet to go right. And there's me. Sally Ride was the first American woman to make it into space, and she was the third woman overall. She also has a couple of extra distinctions alongside of that. One is that she's the youngest American to go in space, with her first mission being when she was just 32 years old, and that's a record that she still has today. And she was also the first known LGBTQ person to make it off of this planet. Then finally, we come to Nancy Roman, who's a noted astronomer and the first female executive of NASA. She was NASA's first chief of astronomy in the 60s and 70s, and she launched the space astronomy program. And basically, she is known as the mother of Hubble. And we can see her here standing in front of that Hubble telescope with one of the amazing pictures that it's captured. So now that we have our full minifigs, we can actually start building the set. Now, there's also something else which I really love about this set, and that is that it's a Lego Ideas set. And that is, it's designed by another AFOL, another adult fan of Lego. And the idea is that these fans, they come up with an idea and they try and get people to vote for it on the Lego Ideas site. And if they can get 10,000 votes, then it gets considered for an actual real-life Lego build. If after consideration, Lego thinks it's viable and they decide to go for it, then you get designers joining the Lego AFOL, and they start turning it into an actual set. And the sets are always really spectacular. I've stopped building at this point because I'm about to switch the book a little bit. Not only do you get the booklet with the instructions, always important, but you also get the information about what the set is about. And you get information about the AFOL that designed it and the designers that helped turn it into something real life. I find these really magical sets to build because of the background information that comes with it, and because it's other people, I'm not going to say like me, because I am not good enough to design my own set, but it's people like me who came up with these ideas and started to build them. Now, back to my building. I have lots of other these sets too. I have my Doctor Who TARDIS, which anybody who knows me, that's kind of my second complete geek out thing, Doctor Who. Maybe it's even my first geek out thing. So when I saw that Lego idea set, I knew that I had to build it. As well as Doctor Who, I've also got the Friends Central Perk. I have the IAS station, the Steamboat Willie from that first Mickey Mouse cartoon, which, by the way, if you ever watch that first Mickey Mouse cartoon, it's terrible how that mouse treats the animals on board. I have Ecto 1, which is a really small set, but it still has pride of place in my living room. And the one that I've just finished a couple of days ago, the amazing Saturn V Rocket. Now, moving on from the Lego Ideas set, my actual journey, and I've had to really kind of limit the sets that I talk about because I could wax lyrical about these all day, but I've only got 45 minutes or so, so I'm having to pick the ones that I really do want to talk about. And I'm just going to concentrate on some of my bigger sets. The set that we're looking at here, it's the Ghostbusters HQ, and it helps if you look what you're doing when you build Lego, because then you put things in the right place. And I built this a few years after my Lego camper van. And at the time when we brought it, it was the biggest set available to buy. And I believe it's still the 10th biggest set overall that you can get today, if you can find it, that is. It was a birthday present and it was a family build. All three of us built this one together, taking it in turns to do various things. One person reads a book, one person finds the parts, one person does the fun stuff of actually building it. And when you're building it, you see all of the awesome details that go into making this. On the ground floor, we have the garage for Ecto 1. We have Janine waiting for that first call where she can scream, "We got one." you have Peter Venkman's office, where Walter Peck comes in shortly before turning off the containment unit, which we can see in one of these pictures too, to disastrous effect in New York. Moving up a level, we have a kitchen, bedrooms, and shower room, because after you've been slimed by Slimer, you need to get clean, have something to eat, and then just sleep it off, I imagine. And then moving up to the top floor, where we have the lab, where the guys can work out all of the things that they learn on the street. We have a pool table, which in the second Ghostbusters movie is where you had the dancing toaster full of slime. And we've even got the photo lab, where those pictures of Vigo burst into flames. And we've even got the flames in this picture. Now, if I didn't know that I was totally hooked on Lego before I started this set, I certainly knew afterwards. And this is where I started to buy more and more sets. One of those sets was this beast, the Millennium Falcon. More to the point, the Ultimate Collector's Series Millennium Falcon. Now, if there's a word to describe this build, it is huge. If there's a second word to describe this build, it is really huge. The dining table that you can see the finished model on here is approximately 1 meter by 2 meters. This thing fills half of it. And it was a really complex build. Whereas the Ghostbusters HQ that we have just seen on the previous slide was way more about looking cool and all the dioramas and all of those little details, this set, it was way more about the structure on the inside. And it needs to be, because you've got to take the weight of it. And it caused kind of a problem for the family building. And it caused kind of a problem because putting all this together, whilst for me it was really cool looking at the structure and figuring out how all of the different pieces of structure go together, trying to guess what goes next. For some of the rest of the family, yeah, not quite so much. It was more, are we just doing more of this structure? When are we actually going to start to do something interesting? And because of that, we kind of left it lying for a few weeks whilst we were getting ready for our vacation 2 years ago. And when we came back, we picked it up again. Then we started on the shell. And this is where this set gets really cool. It is covered in what's known as greebling. And that is little bits of Lego that you put onto the outside to make it look more interesting. So you've got pipes, guns, wheels, telephones, all of these things made to look like something else entirely. Putting all this together, it took us about 4.5 months in total, I think. And I can say when I put that cockpit on with Han and with Ray, I maybe let out just a little bit of a fangirl squeal. Right, and in the meantime, there we have our backdrop ready. And now we can start on the code. And my computer's completely died on me. Come on now, you can do this. Thank you. Now, I wanted to mention the Central Perk one a little bit too, because I am such a huge fan of Friends. And when I had got the chance to build Central Perk as a Christmas present, it got opened instantly. As soon as we finished dinner, or as soon as we finished breakfast, I should say, we started to open up our presents. We all had Lego because we're all fans of Lego, and we were all building individually. And I think I actually managed to finish this set inside of about 1.5 hours, maybe 2 hours. And it was just such a lot of fun. The way that they put the weird angle to make the shape of the coffee shop, the fact that the main window is on sideways so that it sits in a really weird position, and even the way that the curtains at the back of the cafe are hung sideways, which is called snot, studs not on top. And of course, that coffee machine, which This is a bit where Lego starts to get really cool for me. You take a couple of taps, a magnifying glass, you put it together with some other little bits, and suddenly you have a coffee machine sitting in front of you. I absolutely adored this. Now, almost finished with Margaret now. I hope that I'm making a little bit of set. And there is the first set ready to be put on display. And this kind of shows what I was talking about with just little bricks suddenly turning into something else. We have a wheel and a stick turning into a hat stand. And we've got lots of little plates turning into books stacked on top of each other. I seriously love this stuff. Moving on, and this set has a special place in my heart. It is the Lego house, and it's a model of the actual Lego house, which is in Billund in Denmark, the home of the brick. And at the time when I got this, you could only buy it in one place, and that was the Lego house itself. You could only buy it when you went to visit. We got it on vacation a couple of years ago, and I brought it home, but I didn't really have time to build it straight away, and it sat in a box for a short amount of time. And then one day, something triggered a little bit of a panic attack in me, and I ended up in a really low mood. And I realized I had this set, and I thought, well, I'm just going to lock myself away, and rather than wallow in the feelings that I have, I am going to try and just while away time building this Lego set. And that's what I did. And because my mind wasn't on it, I made mistake after mistake. But I also spent hour after hour laying a brick, laying a brick, laying a brick. And in doing that, it turns almost in kind of a meditation type thing. And by the time I was finished, I'm not going to say that I was feeling good, but I was feeling so much better. And I had this awesome set on display, which could take me back to that place that I was just a few short weeks ago, back in Billund, having an awesome time. Now, this is the first time that I've ever used Lego as therapy for when I'm not feeling great. It hasn't been the last time that I've done it. I still like to really just shut myself in my head, find a nice repetitive set where I don't have to think too much. It's not overly complex, but I can just put brick on top of brick on top of brick and just let the world go by. Now we come up to the real build. This is my Lego street. We have a cinema, an assembly square, a detective agency, a diner, and a Parisian restaurant. And everything except for that palace has been built inside of lockdown. So let's start with the assembly square. This was also brought in Billund last year. And we brought it back with us. And actually, we very nearly couldn't bring it back with us. My eyes were bigger than my car. We brought it from the Lego shop. We got to the end of the vacation, loading the car up, and I can just stick this in the back of the car. I drive a station wagon. This isn't going to be an issue. It was an issue. It was too big for the boot. It had to be jammed behind the driver's seat for most of the trip home. Thank goodness there was only 3 of us in the car, because if there was 4 of us, I seriously don't know what we would have done. But we got home and we started to build this just after lockdown. And it's a modular set, which means you build it layer after layer after layer, and you can hook it into all of the other modular sets. And on the ground floor, we had that cafe where Lego figures can start to get a coffee, maybe a snack. We have a bakery where there's a big wedding cake in the window, and yet another fantastic detail. I don't know if you can see it on this picture. Let's just switch camera a second. You can maybe see it on the picture here. That is actually a garage door from those 1980s sets that I was talking about. and you have to mount them sideways into grooves in order to make it look like leaded windows. And it was really frustrating. That took like an hour to get right. I just could not fit it in. But when it was finished, it looks fantastic. Moving on to the first floor, and we have a music shop with guitars, which, okay, that's just a plastic guitar, but also a drum kit, which is made up of individual Lego pieces. We have a photography studio with an old-fashioned camera sitting there. We have the model being photographed on the roll of photograph paper coming out from the wall. And we have a dentist because, well, if you're going to go to the bakery and eat all that sugar, you're probably going to need a dentist at some point. And then we get up to the top floor, and really what was absolutely the piece de resistance for this set for me, and that is that fantastic mirror. When I saw in the set that we were going to be putting a mirror in, I kind of just assumed that it wasn't going to be a real mirror. It was going to be a piece of plastic or a piece of cardboard that was a little bit shiny, but in no way reflective. I was wrong. As you can see in this picture, it is reflective enough that you can actually take a photo of the ballerina practicing her work against the mirror. Also on the top floor, we have a little apartment, and I don't have the pictures of it here, unfortunately, because I couldn't get the camera inside. But this also has some really spectacular, just little details that somebody's thought about on the inside of it. First of all, it has a little Lego set. It's tucked away inside of the wall somewhere, waiting for somebody to build. It has a train set included in it, with a little train going around a track on a layout. And because you also need some outside time, there's a little roof terrace where people can eat outside. This set's probably a couple of months worth of building time. We tried to ration ourselves one bag Saturday, one bag on Sunday, and work our way through. And when that one was done, we had this set ready and waiting for us. The detective agency, Ace Brickman. And I think this set is probably set in 40s crime noir time, because downstairs in that pool hall, I think that is a speakeasy. You can see the steps going through the alleyway, and those steps have a tunnel leading underneath them into the barbers, where you can sneak the alcohol in and out of the room. Then we have Ace Brickman himself sitting in his office talking to his client with lots of hidey holes lighting around the place. And he's got a client, and on the top floor, he has a pokey, tiny little apartment, also with a roof terrace, although he does have to share it with a water tower. Now, this is a bit where it gets really difficult, because building this yesterday, I went wrong here several times. So I'm going to try and concentrate on the build for 2 seconds, and then I'm going to get back to my talk. And this is a time when Lego can get really frustrating, because when I did this yesterday, I really had to redo this bit of the build like 4 times before I could get it to go correctly. But apparently it seems that that was time well spent, because this was so much easier than it was. Let's have a look. So that needs to go that way. We need to put this upside down here. We can put the black bit behind, and that's not right, is it? This is a bit where I start to swear in a minute. Nope. There we go. Lego can get so frustrating sometimes. It's awesome. Now, after we'd finished with the brick, with Ace Brickman, we got one of my favorite sets. Anybody who has seen me in real life, you probably know that I adore 50s rock and roll dresses. And this set just embodies all of that. We have the pink caddy. We got the musician in his open top car waiting for his ice cream float from the waitress on skates. We have the diner with the booths and the bar stools, the Wurlitzer, that fantastic curved window, which, I don't know, it feels very Hopper-esque to me. I can almost think Nighthawks looking at that one. Above the, where are we? above the diner, we have a gym where our Lego figures can work out, which is probably good if they're eating all the burgers and drinking all of those ice cream floats. And inside of our gym, we have a boxing ring, we have a punch bag, free weights. There's even an air conditioner and a water bottle in there so that they can rehydrate and cool down after their workout. And then on the top floor, we have the radio station. Our musician, when he's finished his ice cream float, can go up into the music room, into the studio, and do his set, which is transmitted via the big aerial on the roof. He can even go onto the roof and do a Beatlesque rooftop performance. This set, the colors, the feeling, it's me. And then the last set inside of our street, and just quickly checking the time here, I'm going a little bit slower than I was hoping for. Not everybody likes a burger. Some people also like a little bit of fine dining. And for that, we have our Parisian restaurant that moved into our street, Chez Albert. And this has a really romantic, cozy restaurant on the ground floor. It has a chef preparing the world's biggest bird. Seriously, it's as big as a chef himself. It's got a beautiful terrace on the front where you can enjoy your croissant in the sun, and a terrace upstairs with mood lighting for that romantic meal at night. And it's all of these little details again that you turn a boring little plastic brick into whatever the awesome designers have inside of their imagination. Now, also upstairs on this set, we have a little maisonette, and it's for a budding artist. And they've got a tiny little cozy apartment with a kitchenette and a fire to keep warm. And inside of the attic, inside of that roof, there's an artist studio where the budding artist creating their new works, kind of based a little bit of Montreal, I think. And I can't wait to see what they look like when they're finished. That's the end of the tour at the moment, but this is a work in progress. We are continually working on this set. We have an amount of sets that are still being, waiting to be unboxed. Rumor has it that for the bookworms, there's a bookshop arriving soon. And after that, we even have our garage coming to the end of the street so that we can actually service that black limo, that pink caddy, because I can tell you they've been waiting for a while. They're in desperate need of it. In the future, the street's growing. There's going to come a police station and even a MOC, that stands for My Own Creation, hospital is being considered. That's a set actually designed by an AFOL that doesn't go through Lego. They take existing sets and they turn it into something new. And this particular one that I've seen, it is 2 garage sets, and it turns into a sprawling hospital complex. Might possibly happen in the summer. Now, in doing all of this, I want to talk about communication, because we humans think that we can communicate, especially if we're speaking the same language. And I know that there's an amount of us that know that that's not true. If you ever try and build Lego in the way that I'm describing here, where one person reads a book, one person looks, whoops, I'll just throw the space shuttle on the floor. One person searches for the parts and one person does the building. You find out fairly quickly that humans absolutely positively cannot communicate in any way, shape, or form. It's a really good way to test a relationship and see how many pages you get into the instruction book before you actually start having your first argument. For instance, when you ask for a 6-stud plank, well, what are you actually saying? Are you saying that you want a plank which is 1x6? Or is it 2x3? When we talk about colors, we talk about a brown tile. Well, do you actually mean brown? Or do you mean beige, light brown, dark brown, gold? It all looks kind of the same in the book a little bit. Do you mean light gray, dark gray, silver? Sometimes in some of the books, black can even be confused for any one of those colors too. All of these things test our ability to talk to each other. And that includes where to put it, because if you can't point to the exact stud, then you've got to think how to explain this to somebody in such a way that they really understand what it is that you're talking about. I really liken this to a long journey, putting together IKEA furniture without directions and without instructions. It's a nightmare, and it is so much fun at the same time. In fact, when I get back to the office, when we are eventually allowed to go back to the office, I'm planning on doing an experiment with my teams. I'm going to get them a small set, and I'm going to ask them to build it in this way and see exactly what it is that they learn about each other and learn about their communication. There's just 2 more sets, which I kind of want to go through with you before I get to the end and do my last big set. So I've got 3 more sets. This was my first real architecture set, if you don't count the Lego building itself. And this was fun because it was just built at a completely different scale than anything I'd done before in Lego. All of a sudden, I'm building this massive skyscraper. And again, it just shows the level of detail that these Lego designers go to when they create these things. The outside looks like it's full of windows by using these grated tiles to such great effect. There's New York taxis on the ground floor. On the inside, there's even escalators inside of the lobby. And those ones really threw me because those escalators, you never see them. You can't dismantle this building to look at them. You only know they're there if you've built the model yourself. And that actually makes it even more special for me because that means that these designers had such attention to detail that they gave little Easter eggs to the people who built it, even if it's never going to be shown. And then my final set that I have pictures of, and that is the Saturn V Rocket that I just finished. It's another idea set. So again, this was made by an adult fan of Lego. Come on, go together. And this set has a number of fantastic little details. First of all, it is built in such, and speaking of space, there's our space shuttle ready to launch. This model is about 1 meter tall. It is huge. It is made up of lots of different cylinders that are stacked on top of each other and then expanded outwards. I've seen so many different techniques for building sideways in this model. It's unreal. And the last bit about this model, which makes it really fantastic for me, is a number of pieces. It is a Saturn V rocket, and there are 1969 pieces that go into making it up. You can dismantle it into the different sections of the rocket, just as you could when these things went into space. And there's our second set. Where were we? Whee! There's a camera. And yeah, it's just the attention to detail. I just truly adored this set. I'm not going to get to build the last Lego model on camera here because I really want to switch cameras now and go to my last Lego set in my last few minutes that I want to show you. And that is a Lego Nintendo Entertainment System. Now, being an 80s child, as well as Lego, there was, of course, Nintendo or Sega Master System. This is my birthday present for this year. And this is another one where the designers have gone over the top on detail and made it absolutely fantastic. We can open up the front of the Lego set and pull out exactly as on a real Nintendo or cartridge, which anybody who grows up in the 80s, you know you've got to blow the cartridges to make them work. It slots in and you push it down and you're ready to play. Also on this set, hidden beneath the side panel is this fantastic little Super Mario diorama, which, again, if you don't know it's there, you don't get to see it, and it's just an awesome little detail. And we have a little controller, which is kind of life-size and does hook into the Nintendo. And yes, I have actually played Air Nintendo on this, pretending that I was playing Metroid or Mario or whatever else from the 80s. It doesn't end there. As well as the Nintendo, this was before handhelds. We need somewhere to play it. And we have a little television here. And of course, it's the 1980s, so it's a CRT TV with a big bulge in the back. And the absolute best thing, Mario, if I can turn it, actually plays whilst you turn the handle. There's a caterpillar track on the inside. And I was just literally overawed when we finished making this. And it gets even better. We can pop open the top, and there's a little barcode there that you can see. And as you turn it, which way do I need to turn it? Whoops. As you turn it, you see these little tiles come past. Now, Lego also make a game to go with this. And it's got a Mario with an LCD chest and LCD eyes. And as you move him around this Lego game, his eyes change and his stomach changes, and he reacts to the different tiles. If you put Mario on top of here and you turn the handle, he reacts to the different things he jumps across on the screen. So that's my journey of Lego. That's me trying to build on camera for the first time and throwing Lego across the floor that I got to pick up in a second. My notes at this point are completely empty, and they're completely empty because I had no idea how this was going to go. I hope that it was as entertaining for you as it was for me. I managed to build 2 out of the 3 models. I'm quite impressed with that. And I think I managed to cover the main points of the models that I wanted to go through with you as well. Thank you so much for listening to me. I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you enjoyed the rest of the conference.
So just speaking for me, I loved it so much. And I mean, you couldn't see it because you can only see yourself in StreamYard. But I think our producer saw me like, no, with every new set that you sort of like uncovered. Like, no, can't be. And I actually ordered 3 sets just during this presentation. So thank you very much. All my hard-earned money out of the door into a couple of meal sets. And I have a couple of questions for you. And I know we're like pushing on time, but I want to get a couple of questions in there. So a question from the audience was, where do you keep all of your builds? Because we've seen the sort of like the cabinet top, but you know, you've talked about so many more systems. Where do you keep them? Do you have a separate room for them, or
at the moment they're spread around the house a bit? So that Lego Street is in our room, and that's staying in our room. That's our bedroom Lego set. The camper van lives on top of one of my speakers, and the TARDIS lives on top of the other speaker. I have DO and the Lunar Lander, which live in the windowsill in the living room. The Millennium Falcon is currently in the bedroom. My partner is so not happy about that. But we have a plan. As soon as we sort the last room in the house, we've only been living here 3 years, so of course it's not sorted yet.
Obviously, boxes everywhere.
That's going to turn into a Lego room for some of the sets. So the Falcon's going to go in there. The Saturn V will go in there. And others, they're just dotted around the house.
I love it. Sort of a walk-in closet for all of your sets. That's
yeah, pretty much.
It sounds like the dream. Another question was, have you ever tried? Well, you mentioned that you're thinking when we're allowed in the office again to bring some sets and see, you know, like how your team would communicate about, you know, building something together. But have you ever tried a Lego retrospective? So not with a family after building a set. Like, how did we do? How did we feel that with it? But did you ever do that with your team at work?
I have done the Lego Serious Play at Scrum meetups, but I've never done a Lego retrospective with my team. So that is something else that I want to do as well.
I believe our moderator has, and so maybe, Raita, if you can share some of your experiences or, resources for more information so people can try that out as well. You mentioned, a couple of sets that were created by AFOLs and then, actually brought to life in cooperation with Lego. What happens with some of the ideas that maybe are not accepted? Do people put them in a repository somewhere? Can you grab those and just, is there a platform where we can find those? I have so many questions.
I am not 100% sure of this, but I don't think that those which are submitted are allowed to become mocks. I think that's part of it. If you submit it for the Lego idea, then you submit it for the Lego idea.
And they live there forever.
That some of them do get revisited. So, for example, the space station was actually turned down once. You can't see it. I'm turning to the side and I'm pointing to the space station next to me that you can't see. It was turned down once, and then for 10 years of Lego ideas, they revisited it. And they actually brought it to life at that point.
That is really cool. That's a cool tidbit of information, which your presentation was full of. Anyway, I feel like I've learned so many things, including what it's called when you're pushing a curtain a certain way. So,
Yes, I love it. Snot. Lego snot. Who thinks of these things? It's fantastic.
It's beautiful. So again, thank you so very much for your presentation. I loved every bit of it. It was very wholesome. It was definitely meditation or therapy for me just watching. So go figure if you were building at the same time.
For the spend.
It was, yeah.
If you want, I can invite you to a WhatsApp group. It will only get worse.
So maybe not. And maybe I can expense it to the organizers of this conference. How about that? We'll have a conversation about that later on. All right. Thank you so much, Stacy.
Thank you.
We're moving on to the next session.